What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline. And as you can see here, I have a very, very special guest, an extremely important guest, an extremely special guest. And I want to tell you why, for a couple of reasons, why it has specific significance. One of the first books that I reviewed on this channel, or I think it was the first book that I reviewed on this channel on this topic of what is the nature of reality, really trying to understand and get my head around everything that's happening, was Leaving the Trap. And of course, the author is right here, is Isabella Greene. Now, this is actually, I didn't tell you this, Isabella, but this is actually a big dream coming true, because I actually tried to reach out to you like way long ago on Facebook, but then I realized your Facebook, like it didn't receive messages or something unless I'm connected to you, something like that. So I said, okay, but this is, I think, shortly after I reviewed your book, and then later on, we eventually came into contact. I think you'd seen one of my other videos, and now you're here, and this is amazing. And the other reason why this is so incredible is because I actually read Isabella Greene's recent book, Transcending the Trap. And I actually read it yesterday and today. So I read it because I came back from Monroe and I had limited time. And so I just I'm glad though I just read it because it's all super fresh. And the other reason why it's especially important that she's here, I now realize after reading his book, is she has put together, I think it might be the best book out there on this topic, because she strings together everything, including some of the new people that have popped up, Elizabeth April, Darius J. Wright. She talks about Robert Monroe, and she blends all of the different disparate pieces together so well that I think it's just something that you just have to read. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome, and last thing I want to say is, using our discernment, you're somebody that when I watch your interviews, I just feel sincerity, I feel honesty, I feel integrity coming from you. And that's, of course, the number one reason you'd want to interview anybody. So I always feel that coming from you in large doses, large quantities. So without further ado, Isabella Greene, thank you so much. Welcome to the channel.
Well, thank you so much for such an introduction. Surely know how to stroke the ego. I
All
appreciate
true.
your perspective, and I appreciate being on your show. I'm glad we're connected, and your dream is coming true. There we go.
Yes.
Ask and it's given. There you go.
100%. Me too. Me too. I'm very, very glad. Okay, before we get into the mix, because I've got a whole list of questions and topics that I want to cover with you. But before we get into all that, I believe it's your seminal work of Leaving the Trap, you talk about how your pre-birth memories and how you came here, if I remember correctly, because that one I read a little while ago, but I still remember you were incarnated, but you were in a realm where you had some sort of a collective consciousness.
Yeah.
You heard the distress signal from Earth and you came here. Can you tell us a little bit about that story from what you recollect and how you came to be on planet Earth?
Well, I remembered this story in one of my really deep meditations, and I was already doing deep meditations, really deep, where you can dive into parallel experiences of yourself and the non-physical and all the different realms and all that. So it was one of these meditations, and I had a vision and the remembrance, like I was there to relive this and bring this back and tell the story. So I was on a red planet, and of course there we were just living there, so it didn't have a tag on, like the human name for it or whatever. It was just the red planet. We were all living in a, like you said, collective consciousness, not the hive mind, by no means the hive mind, but it was the reality where we were connected deeply with the planet. The planet was like a mother to all of us, and we all had individual consciousness, but we were also connected as that whole population of that planet. There was non-physical population of the planet, and I felt limitless. I had no idea any limitation existed. We could pop in and out of different realities. We were free to go fly, whatever. And I was so sure in my abilities that it never occurred to me that that could be taken away in any way. And we received like a frequency, a signal, like a radio signal, you can call it, right? We received the frequency of distress, and it was coming from a world in distress that I knew nothing about, and it was asking for help. And I was thinking, hey, yeah, I'll have an adventure and sure, I'll go help. And I thought that I would just pop in, do whatever I needed to do there, and then pop right back out. I was sure I was going to have all of my abilities intact, and I didn't think I was going to lose the entire connection with that world or myself or my abilities. So literally the minute I decided, or I had that feeling like, sure, I'll go. Now that'll be interesting, like that kind of feeling. I started getting denser and denser. Like I started dropping into density. Like let's say if I was light in a light form, then I turn into air, then I turn into water, and then I turn into mud, and then I turn into it felt like a rock because all of a sudden I was inside of a human baby body. And I remembered also being birthed and coming out in that, and that felt like a straitjacket. It just felt, and I was also that fully formed consciousness inside the body that I could not work with. I could not operate that body. That body was helpless, and it was extremely unpleasant. And I had all of these physical sensations all of a sudden that I didn't have before. It was cold, it was wet, it was gross. The whole thing was really uncomfortable, and my state of being was like, what is this? Like, what happened? And I don't know. It might be that I recalled my present life birth and how that's connected. I don't know, because I also think that the red planet was my coming into the first incarnation, but I really don't know like what happened in between there. But in this lifetime, when I was being birthed, the nurse that received me told my mom that she's never seen anything like that before, because right out of the womb I was lifting my head and looking around. My eyes were open, and the nurse said that I was like blazing the room, like what's going on here, and I kind of remembered that, that it was just so devastating to be in the physical form. And whether I remembered this birth time or the previous one or the very first one, I don't know. But I remember that coming from the light form into the physical form is excruciating, I tell you. And of course, that's it. All of the abilities were gone. I was completely disconnected. My mother became the only source of the love that we knew. We knew love. We didn't have parents on the red planet. It wasn't like there was no family units or anything like that. We didn't have the emotions that we experience here, but we just lived in the state of love there. It was a natural state. We didn't know anything else. And here, my mom became the only source of that, and that just felt so incredibly limiting, like I was ripped away from that incredible other state of being. So all of that I recalled recently enough, within the last 10 years or so.
And maybe that is what happens to all of us when we get ripped away, and hence part of the reason why we form such a strong bond potentially with our parents, and that could be part of the system. But I have a quick question. When we go back to the red planet and that existence, do you recall, was there any sort of, because we're going to talk about consumption and life being consumption on this planet, but was there any sort of food chain or system where, no?
No. We did not have any food chain. There was no vegetation. It was just, there was a mountain, and the mountain was like a conscious, living, thinking transmitter. It was like a transmitter of consciousness. It wasn't technological, and we did not have any vegetation or any other life forms. We did not consume anything. We lived within the energy as energy. So that we were self-sustained within that bubble of energy. And the planet and the population, we were all interconnected. So that's what I recall. There was no need for consumption. I think we have consumption on this planet that was set up that way because the physical body, first of all, has very different requirements, and then also that creates constant flow of loosh.
Yep. Okay. So let's actually talk about that right now. That's why I asked you that, because Eric Duvay, a lot of other people, Hadi McCoskey has talked about the food chain. And this is something too, I think, that we all deep down recognize. It's like life on this earth, we have to kill and destroy every day constantly. That's baked into our existence. It seems weird. And so can you talk a little bit about how the food chain, or the way that this system is set up here on earth, seems inherently flawed or inherently built to feed the Loosh machine?
For sure. Because at the beginning, as far as I went looking for prime Earth, right? And
We're going to talk. Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Whether I saw prime Earth or I saw Earth before, I saw this Earth before it was populated by beings that consume each other to sustain themselves. That's a question still in my mind. But I saw a pristine planet where only basic organisms existed. But then Robert Monroe talks about the Loosh garden, right?
Yes.
How first the units were massive and they were not consuming each other. I think they were just consuming vegetation, and they were only producing Loosh when they were in fear, like disasters or weather related or something. And then the makers figured out that, hey, we can add additional fear for survival, especially fear for survival of the offsprings. That was a very powerful thing. And so there is a belief that the non-terrestrials that were involved in this process populated this planet with different seeds of life from different other planets, and taught the humans to eat flesh, and also brought the species to this planet that eat each other, and in this way created the food chain. I mean, it literally everything, every tiny thing in existence here needs to consume something, which means something has to perish, starting from microorganisms to everything in between in ourselves too.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that the way the biology of the body was set up to consume is deliberate. I'm pretty sure it's deliberate.
It's such a, because we think about it as if there is some governing force that has put it together, I think it must be deliberate. And also, it seems pretty perverse, because why would you set it up in this way where it's just constant consumption, constant death, but for some sort of a negative motive, in my opinion. But can we, right?
There were apparently in the book of Genesis, and I did not read that, but I'm a big fan of the work of Paul Wallace, and he talked about creation of the first humans, and that there was a deliberate decision made to shorten the lifespan. Like you mentioned, there's always death, and to shorten the lifespan of the humans, and to also, and then there were also the beings that came in and gave us the grains and taught us and the grains that like glue your gut brain together, right? Then taught us to farm and eat animals also. Yeah, and that was at the very beginning of the development of the human race. But before that, if we take that we even had ancestors, or that these ancestors were brought here and then genetically modified and then genetically modified again, the original primate, or the original primal human that was used in all these genetic manipulations was a hunter-gatherer kind of type of being, the omnivore. So something that ate everything, and that was already by design. I have no doubt about it. But in my book, I mentioned, and I've seen that in a couple of programs with Linda Mudenhauer, who says that there's been 270 million years of genetic manipulations on the human race, and most likely other species on this planet as well, just to perfect or continue the system. And same as you look at everything, as above so below, quite literally, as you look at everything that's happening here, right, it cannot be just one mobile device, right? It constantly gets upgraded, and you need this, and you need that, and then you need that, and they keep adding stuff. And so it's exactly, and it's all for consumption. It's all for production of profit. Every industry runs on profit, and more profit by all costs, by all means, right? And it's the same exact thing with Loosh, it appears. So every discovery they made with the next genetic manipulation, that when they consume this, there's this kind of Loosh, or when they fight for survival of their offsprings, there's that kind of Loosh, or even when they love, there's this kind of Loosh. And these are not my words. I did not want to believe that ever, but Robert Monroe said that, so there we go. So the system that we're in appears to be running exactly in the same exact manner as what we have here. I mean, all we have to do is look at what's going on in the human reality to kind of see where all that is coming from, what kind of concept, what kind of mentality, what kind of drive is behind what we are in as the matrix system.
It's so funny that phrase, as above, so below, because I hadn't even read that anywhere, and that popped in my head. I'm like, I know I've heard this somewhere before, and then everybody keeps saying it, so that must be in the ether somewhere. Now, you mentioned Loosh. I want to come back to Loosh as our next topic, but really quickly, can we talk about Prime Earth? Because this is something that I've heard multiple times, and I'm also trying to reconcile it with the Gnostic text and the story of the creation of the physical universe. But my question to you is, you've remote viewed Prime Earth. Prime Earth was this pristine plane. We didn't have the food chain. We didn't even have animals or humans killing and murdering and doing all this stuff. So is it your belief now, after remote viewing or seeing Prime Earth, that it existed maybe somewhat similar to what you described on the Red Planet in your original memory, and then it was commandeered and turned into what we have today in this as this massive Loosh form. Is that what you believe happened?
This actually never occurred to me before. It
Mm-hmm.
just occurred to me on our show, right here on your show, in our
Okay.
conversation, that when, because David Icke talks a lot about Prime Earth,
Mm-hmm.
and Prime Earth being the original and the current Earth here being the simulation or the copy.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went looking for Prime Earth, I looked and looked, but I found that pristine planet with vegetation, clean waters, clean skies, no handlers,
Mm-hmm.
and no species that consume each other, and no humans at all. And so it is very possible that I landed on the timeline in the pre-creation of the current system. It is
Mm-hmm.
very possible that that was what was originally created. And I think maybe even in Monroe's book in the Loosh Garden, didn't he talk about the trees being there first? I don't remember.
I can't. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but because I jumped onto the dinosaurs, right? But I think there might be something that was there before. So I don't know. If we consider that these beings were non-terrestrial beings and maybe they were looking to expand their territory or expand their system, they get another planet to turn it into a farm, right? Same like we do. Oh, here's a
Mm-hmm.
patch of land. Let's turn that into whatever industrial complex right there, right?
Yep.
So maybe they were exploring and found that prime reality or prime Earth, pristine planet, and then installed the system there. I don't know, but I have not been able to locate any other um, reality or visual or planet when I give myself the directive to go search for Prime Earth.
Okay.
I want to add something. Can I
Yeah, of
share
course.
something? I have not said that out in public yet
Mm-hmm.
because it just happened. It
Okay.
just happened, and it's not in any of my books.
Okay.
So during the solstice, again, during the solstice last year, I saw Yaldabaoth. During the solstice this year, because in my group, I have a Facebook group that's called Exiting Reincarnation,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
private group, and in that group, people kept asking me if I have remote view to have if I have seen in my astral travels and my non-physical out of body experience if I have seen Earth as round or as flat.
Okay.
And I have always seen a bowl,
Mm-hmm.
and the bowl surrounded by like a glowing kind of dome kind of stuff, and then layers of dimensions there, the astral realms and stuff. Always a
Mm-hmm.
bowl, but then I always thought of it as a ball because I was always taught that that was a ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Since we were little, we were shown like a little globe in
Yes.
school, and right. So I didn't even it didn't even I couldn't even imagine it could be something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I decided to clear all of my preconceived notions and go. And during the solstice time in the middle of the night, it was peaking actually this time, which is good. Good
Mm-hmm.
thing. So I went to look for what Earth is like, really. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I want to do this and see what it is like for real.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sitting down?
Yes. Yes. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Dude, I did not find anything around the flat. What I saw was strings and strings of code.
Whoa, really?
It
Like kind of in
was
the Matrix type of thing?
it was completely black space,
Mm-hmm.
and in the black space there was like a rectangular formation of code, and it was just kind of floating up and disappearing, and there was the glow that I have seen before, that bluish glow, kind of like from the screen in the middle of the night, and that's it. I was like, no, that can't be right. That cannot be right. So I got back. I literally got back into my body, like woke up, so that I reset the whole thing. And I was like, I'm doing this again. So then I got back into the state, went back out, same thing. I did this 6 times, and I saw the same exact thing. Is this new? Is this the upgrade we've been talking about? Is this something that, like, the next level of the simulation? Or was I not able to see that before? I don't know.
Maybe too, it could be, I've heard that a lot of times when and again, I haven't been able to do it yet. You probably saw that in my Monroe breakdown, but maybe when you're remote viewing or astral projecting, a lot of times you're decoding the information you're seeing with your past experiences or past references. So this was the first time that you cleared it out, and then you're seeing kind of like the back end of, for example, as opposed to seeing the projection of this, of what we see on a computer, now you're seeing the inside, the hardware, or the baseline code, maybe something along those lines.
Exactly that. So I'm thinking that previously I was seeing the projection on the screen kind of thing, right? What we all see. But here I was looking at the back end of how it's actually created to be projected. Ooh, that gave me like chills like you would not believe. So this is something I'm still chewing on, because that just happened last month.
That's wild. Okay, well, breaking news, everybody, if you're watching this, that's pretty crazy and very, very, very interesting. A little unsettling, but that's how it goes when we're trying to decode the truth and understand what's going on.
Look, unsettling, we're talking about that this whole thing is a simulation, and it's artificial intelligence projecting our reality, that it's a computer program, that, so it is, if it just could be supporting evidence. I wouldn't say proof. I wouldn't be so bold as to say, okay, now it's proven, right? But I would say that it could be a piece of supporting evidence that it is indeed a simulation, because all the rest of the information on the theory that it's a simulation, not that I know all the rest, quite frankly, but I never heard anyone describe or have this visual before, right? So this could be a piece that belongs in the pile of, okay, it is a simulation, and when you look at Earth, it's neither flat nor round. It's a computer code.
Yeah, and maybe
strings of code.
And it's our consciousness, perhaps, that's actually whatever's been programmed into us is perhaps reading the code and interpreting it certain ways, perhaps.
And the strings were not numbers and not letters. They were symbols. There were symbols. There was some sort of symbols, like kind of reminded me of like light language symbols, but I could not get close enough, so to speak. I could not zoom in enough to actually get the code, but they were not our earthly zeros and ones or numbers or letters, and not geometric forms either. They were some sort of symbols, and they were literally moving. They were moving in strings within that rectangular form, and on the top they were kind of dissipating, getting like narrower and dissipating with the glow around it. So very, very interesting.
Have you tried to draw them out or no?
I did not get, I can clearly see the whole visual from afar, but the actual symbols, I did not get enough imprint of that to bring that back here so that I could reproduce that on paper.
Got it. Okay. Now I'd love to thank you for all. That's incredible. By the way,
first time.
As Isabella mentioned, this is the first time. So this is a big, that's amazing that you are telling people this on my channel. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now, we did touch on Loosh. We've talked about Loosh. Maybe that is the purpose of this particular realm in the simulation, and maybe other realms as well.
Maybe. Did you say maybe?
Definitely, probably, yeah, definitely. Let's go there. But let's back up for a second, because you talk about, I think there's a misconception out there about Loosh, and we think, oh, it has to be that's why there's so much fear and anger and negativity. But you make a very good point, obviously also talked about by Robert Monroe, that no, Loosh isn't just the negative stuff, it's all of it. So can we start by can you tell us all of the different the flavors or the types of Loosh that exist?
Now that's unsettling, because we have been raised, especially in the New Age community, love and light, and only positive vibrations, and only positive words, and now people are saying, oh, if I do only positive stuff and only positive emotions, then I'm starving the archons.
Yep.
But it appears, and again, in the same chapter of Far Journeys, where Monroe talks about the Loosh Garden, he talks about, I don't know if I can find that right now, he talks about first creation of first discovery. All right, so Loosh apparently existed and was collected, but randomly. It was kind of like a random, same like, let's just say wild bees make honey, right? And then you have to go through the forests and find and collect the honey, and it's not guaranteed supply. But then if you farm the bees, then you get guaranteed supply of honey, right? So apparently, according to Robert Monroe's chapter right there, and that I have hearsay evidence, chapter 12 in his book. So in his book, The Far Journeys there.
I'm in the middle of that one still. I haven't finished yet. I read his first book, and I need to finish the second.
You need to go straight to chapter 12 and 13, and that would clear a lot up. In any case, so according to that chapter, also Loosh was being collected like that wild honey. And then someone somewhere, that's what he says, he calls that, someone somewhere decided that, hey, how about we grow this, or we farm this? And so they started experimenting with different life forms. And they started with dinosaurs, and then went all the way to humans. And at the beginning, they discovered that the Loosh that they wanted was produced through fear and negative emotions and survival challenges and all that, right? So that's the original Loosh, or that's the original collection of Loosh. But then they discovered that when the subjects are prostrated in front of them in religious devotion, that's an even better Loosh. And it's right here, it's right in that chapter. That is I wish I.
You know what? I think I have the quote ready that I can pull it up from your book, because I just, like I said, I made a video about it. Here,
okay, because so the Archon, I can talk about it now.
Sure.
The Archon appeared in front of the human, and the human probably thought it was God in front of them.
Yep.
They prostrated in religious ecstasy, crying and freaking out. And the Archon was like, ooh, that's the best Loosh. That's even better Loosh. And so they started discovering that the most pristine and the most distilled and the best Loosh ever is either that love and devotion. So they discovered that, and I'm just repeating what Monroe says in the book. They discovered that after they already set up the system to run, to produce fear and suffering. This is why we don't have the planet that is all loving. That is why we don't have the system that where the humans are all devoted and loving, because we were originally generated and created within the system that was collecting loosh from suffering and fear and anger and all that.
And
If they discovered that, love and devotion and religious ecstasy were that much better first, we would have had a very different reality.
I think you also make the point though in your book that you said, okay, love is a higher form of loosh, but it's easier for people to be in states of fear, anxiety, and anger than it is to get into the states of love, which is another reason why we see so much negativity on the planet. Do you also think that's another part of the explanation, or it's more
Yeah,
the? Yeah.
because the human race was genetically created to be aggressive.
Okay, got
And
it.
we were genetically created to be aggressive, to run the misery program, so that the negative loosh, let's just say, right, fear, anger, all that was being collected, and that was safe. That was for sure.
Okay.
That's why it's, maybe, I don't even know if, I'm just speculating right now, maybe they even lowered the human ability for experiencing high emotions because they wanted more of that original negative loosh, until they figured out that, wow, the love loosh is phenomenal. And maybe the whole movement now, like, oh, love light, right? And the whole, like, we are moving into the planet of love, that concept is
Yep.
because it will be parallel production. How there is this different types of honey. Let's go back to honey, right? There is this raw honey and pristine and from the fields, from the wildflowers, but still collected through the bees. And then there is like farmed with sugar and all that. And farmed with sugar in this analogy would be something that is standard. It's something that is guaranteed and something that is consumed, and that's anger, fear, suffering, loosh, standard, guaranteed, the platform of things. And then some people prefer the more pristine type of honey, and that market exists also, and this is why we have a different type of honey production. So see what is this making sense here
Yes.
as a metaphor for like easier consumption?
100%. And so that was great. Thank you, by the way, for breaking down kind of all these different types, which answers a lot of questions in terms of how life is set up and, hey, maybe why there's not more love or whatever. I thought that was a really interesting point you made in your book. Now, another thing you talk about, still staying on this idea of loosh, is you mentioned that loosh is a commodity. And you said that it's even traded, it's given out. So, and also remote viewers, the team Intuitive Underground has talked about loosh being potentially used to power ships or do different things or keep the simulation running, a multitude of things. Can you break it down from your understanding? What are all the ways in which loosh is used as a commodity and a resource?
I don't know that.
Okay.
I do not know. If I was an archon, I would know, but I have no idea how it's used. As a matter of fact, that's news to me. What you just said, I heard that what you just said about powering ships. I intuitively knew that it is required to power our system.
Yes.
When I saw Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth was there collecting the energy during the time when the unrest in the Middle East started last year on June 20th. And my intuitive knowing when I observed him that he's harvesting for something. What is that something? And then my intuitive knowing was it potentially, because intuitive, you can never be 100. It's not science, you cannot say like, oh yeah, for sure it's that, but anyone who has these abilities knows that there's always a variation and an interpretation present. So my variation and interpretation of why that was being harvested at that time, was to power the upgrade of the system that I've heard about for a number of months prior to that. The first transmission, I started hearing about that in transmissions in my private sessions. But in March, there was a transmission that I have on my YouTube channel that came through, and they said that the system is already in place to replace the current outdated system and to kind of make it more bulletproof. And I think we're seeing proof of that even in our everyday reality with all of the adjustments that are being made. But on the back end, I think that because it is all orchestrated by that consciousness for that consciousness, so he was harvesting. Chances are he was harvesting for the system upgrade that we are facing at this time.
So you just covered a couple things, and these are all things that I've written down that I want to cover. So this is perfect. Let's go back one moment, because you talked about viewing Yaldabaoth, the Demiurge. This is also talked about in the Gnostic text. This is effectively the one who's kind of in control of this realm and who's in charge of running the Loosh farms and all these different things. And you touched on it just now, which is the exact question that I had, but I would love to just pinpoint a little bit further. So you mentioned you saw it was you felt it was Yaldabaoth via intuition, and I think you did describe it as, correct me if I'm wrong, as a serpent body with a lion head. I want to ask you first, did you see, I think I got this right, but I think you saw it and then you looked up what is this, and then you saw that, oh, this is Yaldabaoth. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's not exactly a lion head. And
Okay.
also, I want to correct here a little bit. It was his original idea.
Mm-hmm.
He was the original creator of Earth and Earth reality, and that's in the Nagamari scriptures.
Okay.
Very clearly laid out that he came up with the idea, and he had 7 siblings, and so he created 7 realms and then added another 5. So this is how we have 12 dimensions, astral dimensions of the earth plane. And then earth was his footstool. And so him and all the beings that on earth that were created, and it talks about the Nagamari scriptures talks about how they were trying to make a human and not so successfully, and remaking and all of that. And so the physical was created as a battery, quite literally, to fuel or to sustain the realms, including the realm, and that Yaldabaoth was a shape-shifting being. And when I went out of body, and I observed the serpent like a long snake-like type of dragon with short, skinny legs, but big paws and big head that resembles a lion, but that resembled the type of dragon you see usually at Chinese festivals. You know how they carry this long snake-like dragon with like big head and that whole thing. So that kind of like it's got mane and stuff, and so it looks a lot like a lion. And when I was looking at it, I didn't know what it was. I first thought, oh, maybe it's like the dragon guardian, the naivete in me, like, oh, here's the earth guardian. No, did not have the attitude for earth guardian. And I went in and out of body, and then a few times to look back at it, and then I went and remote viewed it, and then when I came back, I was like, what is it? And that's when it dawned on me. I got that feeling like, oh, that was Yaldabaoth. And I had no idea at that point what it looked like. I just, again, had the intuitive knowing. So I started, because it was wrapped around Earth in a circle, but it wasn't swallowing its tail. So when my left brain came back on, I started Googling stuff. And I first Googled Ouroboros because I heard David Icke talk about Ring Past Me Not, and the Ouroboros being wrapped around, Earth in a circle. So, but Ouroboros is the being that is swallowing its own tail. Here, that was not swallowing its own tail, but it was in a tight circle. So I've researched Ouroboros, and then I think someone wrote to me the next day. I talked about it. I don't remember right now the sequence of events, but someone wrote to me a passage from the Secret Book of John, which is also in the Nagamari
Yep,
scriptures.
I've read that.
And
Apocryphon of John, right?
right, and that had the description of Yaldabaoth as a lion-headed dragon.
Okay.
And so the person who wrote to me said when she heard me speak about that, that she, like, oh, her hair stood on end because she recalled that description. And I had the same feeling. But when I came back into the body, and I was like, what was that? What was that? And you know, when you're in an altered state, you're able to get your answers much easier than in the left brain.
Sure.
And that just dawned on me, like, whoa, that was Yaldabaoth. But I did not know what it looked like at that point until that person sent me that quote. And then I started digging through Nagamari scriptures. And there were, I think there were other references there to a lion-headed serpent.
Got it. Now I have a question. Actually, this goes back to the idea of you're seeing it. You had this intuition. You had this discernment. Maybe a little bit of both. That gave you this idea that no, this is not the guardian. This is actually doing something nefarious. This is something that I've been trying to study and understand a lot myself, because as I'm parsing all this information, I want to have top-notch discernment. I think I have pretty good discernment. But in your estimation, how do we strengthen our discernment so we can have top of the line discernment and detect truth from deception?
I think practice is the only way to do it. I tell you that I didn't see the whole thing first. I just saw an eye, and then I saw a claw, and then I saw a scale, and then I went back into the body, and I was like, that's not enough. So I'm going back in, and then I tried to observe it from above. And so I did many different ways. And then and then it was looking at me. It saw me, it knew my presence was there, and that gave me this bone-chilling feeling. It was very unpleasant. And then I started tuning into its attitude. Like, because if it's a guardian, right, there should be attitude of protector, care, something like that. There was none of that. I picked up very cold, arrogant, self-centered attitude. That's what I picked up. That being had no care for the well-being of Earth. It the only thing it cared about was that it's his. This is my property, and that's like a very, very cold, and whatever is going on there on Earth, it's not it did not concern him at all. It's just like my property, the way it is, that's it. Complete indifference to any atrocity or whatever is happening. So that's the attitude that I picked up. So that's what made me realize that could not possibly be a guardian. I've interacted with guardians of smaller caliber a number of times, and I mentioned that in my book Transcending the Trap, including the dragon-like beings that are in existence in our reality, in our invisible reality, that do serve as guardians, and you can actually hire them as guardians. They are available for hire. That's from a different chapter of my life earlier. I played, like, I interacted and played with different types of beings and stuff. And I talk about the canine
Yes.
humanoid in there. And that was my favorite. But a guardian has a certain type of either a certain type of attitude,
Mhm.
either that or the reptilian ones, the dragons,
Mhm.
the mystical dragons. They are in existence in the non-physical world, but they usually have indifference, like not indifference,
Yep.
neutrality is the word. All right, so they don't really have much emotion, but they have neutrality. They will do, if you hire that as a guardian in your non-physical explorations, it will do the job with neutrality, but it would not have this like cold arrogance, like like what I picked up from Yaldabaoth. So I knew it was not a guardian type of being. That was my discernment. And when I came into the body and I was still in the altered state, and I was just like, oh, what is that? What was this? What was this? And
Mhm.
then it literally felt like a bucket of cold water on my head. That was Yaldabaoth. Ah, oh
Mhm.
my God.
Mhm.
So that's, yeah, definitely there was no sleep that night. I was just like, da 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 da, like looking on Google for Ouroboros and then this and this and that. And yeah, so that's, you know, that's my discernment, very detailed explanation of my discernment of that situation. But to answer your question, I think we have pretty good compass once we have practiced enough.
Okay.
At the beginning, the mistake of a lot of people who start going out of body and inevitably encountering different types of beings, same as when they do ayahuasca
Mhm.
or different type of psychedelics, they encounter all kinds of beings.
Mhm.
The default program is trust every word they say, no matter what it is. All right. And that
Yeah.
is a big mistake. That is a big mistake because there are all kinds of opportunistic spirits around. And if it's talking to you, chances are it's got an agenda of some sort. And we as the humans have been conditioned to blindly follow whatever non-physical apparition tells us, and
Mhm.
that is again a mistake. But I have worked for almost 15 years with different forms of non-physical life,
Mhm.
um, in my private sessions with people that I no longer do.
Mhm.
So I encountered the entire spectrum from negative entities, so to speak, negative, the garden variety,
Mhm.
um, parasitic auric attachments, and all kinds of all sorts, and to the ones that serve as guides and guardians, to the ones that are higher expressions of the same soul stream. And
Mhm.
so I had a lot of experience with different types of beings, and that helped me develop uh, the discernment.
Mhm.
So I again repeat that the main thing to remember is if you come out of body and the spirits are there, and chances are they are going to be there, because if you're astral projecting, you're going to be within the 12 dimensions of the matrix, which means something, you're going to encounter one type of being or another.
Mhm.
Something is going to be there to interact with you. Blind faith into what they say is the biggest mistake. So this is something we need to remember.
Which is probably why this idea of faith is propagated so much, which always bothers me. But I have actually two follow-up questions to all this. So my first one is, since there's always entities maybe lurking that are trying to manipulate or jump on us or get us to try to convince us of certain things, do you no longer try to reach out to, have you now said, okay, now I'm not trying to reach out to these entities, not doing anything into communication with them, because there always could be a negative motive?
I've done a fair share. I've done good 10 years of interacting with all kinds of beings, and also non-terrestrial councils and all sorts of stuff that other people talk about. And I because I was doing the um, advanced out of body practices, let's just say, after first first basic astral projection, and then in my early years, and then I started doing more advanced, where I was able to go into what's called higher realms of earth, which I didn't know was still Earth matrix. And that's when I encountered all of these different types of higher dimensional beings, by all means higher dimensional, but still within the same system. So at this point, and then I reached the point that I no longer required their assistance of any sort. Okay, because if you continue practicing and you go into the level where you have direct access to source of all information, you don't need the middleman anymore. You don't need someone telling you this and this and that, when you can take the question into the mainframe of the earth plane and find out for yourself. And the mainframe is the fake void, or the black space, the void, what most people just call the void.
Yep.
And it's a database on earth reality. So anything, including all of the astral realms underneath that, or governed by that, or that are run by that. So you can go straight in there and get any information you need about the dimensions of the Earth matrix. So you no longer need a middleman telling you something with their agenda in mind.
Right.
So that's why I originally stopped interacting with these beings, just because I was like, I don't need that anymore. But I was still able to channel, and I channeled the non-terrestrial councils literally till 23, I think, was the last time I publicly channeled. And now I don't channel anymore, because that's when I realized that, you know what, all of that has an agenda, and I'm not going to be the channel for any agenda, whether it's obvious or whether it's hidden behind beautiful words, or what they're preparing humanity for. Even the non-terrestrial councils, you don't know if they are the ones running the show on this program, on this planet, and posing as the good guys. So I stopped all of that in 2023. That was when I stopped the remnants of these interactions, because of my belief that, you know what, I'm not going to be the channel, and I don't need the middleman anymore, and I'm not going to be bringing any agenda here.
That's actually, I'm really glad we touched on that, because I have heard people wonder about that and be wary of channeling in general. And so now we've cleared it up. Now that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so you did it, but now you have this realization, and now you stop. Now this leads me to another question of somebody that I actually also had on my channel, somebody that you talk about in Transcending the Trap, which is Darius J. Wright. That is somebody that he had an experience at a young age with a particular entity named Celeste, and that showed him all these things, these 12 different realities or planes, which I think you believe and a lot of other people believe are still within the matrix and within the system. Can I hear your take on Darius J. Wright and what he has communicated as what he believes is the true nature of reality?
Well, I prefer not to discuss someone else's work in this kind of manner.
Okay.
But I covered what my thoughts are in my book, and I can repeat that. Like what I feel. I feel that he is his work is important because he opened the door for those who thought that going out of body is something unmentionable and was hidden, and they were scared to mention it, and it was happening for them either spontaneously or somewhere, in the background, and they would never discuss it. But now that Darius is talking about it, and there are millions of people who have seen his conversations, his interviews, and he's teaching that too. So that became, he literally is blazing the trail, making that part more acceptable. I mean, look at YouTube. That's like the number one looked up subject right now is astral projection. And that's just all because of him, because he's talking about that. So getting out of body in a natural way that he does and that he promotes, rather than taking poison in the body with psychedelics to have the same or similar experience, that's a big benefit. So what he's promoting, what he's teaching is definitely something that, and it helps people separate, like lose the fear of separation from the body, which is of tremendous help for anyone who wants to peek behind the veil, so to speak. So all of that is that.
Got it.
Whether I agree with him or not about the dimensions and the nature of reality, that's more of a no, because it is my perspective that earth plane is surrounded by, or within the earth plane, within the matrix system, we have 12 dimensions. And again, I'm repeating his words. I never sat down and counted 12 dimensions. But Darius said that he explored 12 dimensions in his non-physical explorations. He explored different types of beings, and he showed the pictures of these beings and the pictures of these dimensions. And in my book, from my perspective, from what I have seen in my non-physical explorations, these are all a part of the same system. So, and what that system is there for, that's where my perspective and his are very different.
Got it.
So I think that covers your question. Right?
Absolutely. And by the way, I apologize. I didn't mean to bring up something that you were uncomfortable talking about, but this is part of what I'm trying to do with all the information out there. Some of it overlaps, some of it does not. And so I do think it's really helpful to get people's perspective on the information that other people are relaying. So we'll leave it at that, but I really appreciate you shedding a little bit of light on what he's talked about. You also mentioned something here, though, that is very important, that Darius is opening the door for people to have these out-of-body experiences without psychedelics, maybe without regressions. That's something that you talk about in your book as well. So I wanted to ask you as well to talk about this. Why do we need to be wary, in your own words, of psychedelics and regressions?
These are two different things entirely. Psychedelics would give you a mystical experience, or an experience of being out of body, and it will give you an experience within the matrix also, and it will give you an experience of interaction with different spirit forms. And I just don't see the need to do any of that, because from the perspective that if we take the perspective that we want to get out of the matrix altogether,
Yes.
why explore the matrix? That's my thing. And why poison the body? Why go through this god awful side effects with ayahuasca when you can do the same exact thing through Robert Monroe modality, through Darius Wright's modality? Just practice and practice and get out of the body, and then you can develop a skill and do that whenever you want.
Yeah.
So I'm not in support of psychedelics. I think that's an outdated modality, And I even, at one of the yoga festivals over here in Arizona, there was a speaker, the Mayan, one of the Mayan elders, um, and he actually spoke on that. And he said that the time where the human beings had the need to poison the body to access the soul is behind us, that we
Mm.
have evolved to the level where we have natural abilities restored enough for us to do it without uh, drastic measures like that.
Got it.
And regressions are just collecting information from next door, from a dimension right next door. A lot of people go right back into the afterlife dimension and remember their life review and remember their pre-birth memories. And like, why? If you just curious, that's great, but it does nothing for the objective that I lead people towards, and that I write about in my books, and my work is all about that. And the objective is to get out of the matrix structure altogether at
Yep.
the end of the lifetime. So you do not go into the afterlife dimension, you do not go into the pre-birth, you're not recycled any longer. Enjoy this life, explore if you want, but know that you're just doing that as an FYI. uh, the catch here is this, and I sent you that video where the woman talks about the woman who had a really traumatic life, and she was very untrusting for good reasons
Mhm.
in this lifetime. She said in the interview, she said, I would not trust anyone here at all, but as soon as I landed during her near death experiences, as soon as I landed on the other side, I trusted every word all these beings were telling me. Okay? And then she came back. And that's a mechanism that's built in us. And this is why you go in regression and you remember that, and it imprints you, and you start making decisions based on that. You take ayahuasca, some blue beings show up and tell you some whatever agenda that they have, and they want you to do, and you're gonna follow that
Mhm.
because we're impressionable like this, especially in the altered state.
Yeah.
So the catch here: near death experiences, psychedelic experiences, and regressions, they give us exposure to the beings that are there to push the agenda on us, to condition us. That same woman that in that interview that I sent you,
Mhm.
she, and we can put the link in the description,
Sure.
she came back, and shortly thereafter she started, not right away she was like, what was that all about? But then, because it was already, it's like inception.
Mhm.
Inception. The idea is planted, all right? It was incepted in there.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, she recalled what the beings were telling her. And she started looking that up and found the Great Awakening and this and that. And now she's basing her life on what these beings in the afterlife during the near death experience told her. And this is exactly what happens, and I want you to hear me very closely right now. Are you listening?
I'm here. I'm
This
listening.
is this is exactly what happens to every person who has an out of body experience, who encounters some sort of being, and that being tells them something, and then they start basing their life on the words of that being, and that being can continue coming back and keep teaching them, or they just collect that whole database of information and they start following that blindly.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like that's the hook. That's the hook that they give us. And also, too, I feel as though we don't really talk about a lot of these spiritual connections or these types of these experiences with these other entities. So when it happens, it feels so magical and otherworldly and phenomenal. Then you absorb everything. And I think again, that's part of the system, part of the trap.
We are conditioned. We have been conditioned somehow to believe that if something that glows in the dark, you popped out a body and there is this being and it looks beautiful and it's talking to you. We are conditioned to believe that that being wants our own good. That whatever they're telling us is for our highest good. And they will tell you that too.
Yeah.
They will tell you that that's for the highest good, your highest good, or the highest good of humanity, or whatever. But all they're doing is reinforcing the system. If you pay attention, all they're doing is reinforcing the system. These stories, people come back and tell these stories, and these stories make others believe that the system is benevolent, that the beings are benevolent, that reincarnation is benevolent, that these life reviews and the spirit guides and the whole army. In the Nagamati scriptures, it says myriads without numbers were created to deal with the human race. Or maybe they are just projections now, but they were all there to serve the system, regardless of how beautiful they are, regardless of how heart-opening they make you feel, and regardless of how inspiring their words are. At the end of that life, the person who believed that wholeheartedly will willingly go. They will willingly go into reincarnation. They will willingly take more cycles of suffering to be on the farm on this planet, because that's what they were conditioned to do. And these beings, one way or another, they all prepare us for that. That is something to not forget.
There's so much in what you just said. There's a couple things that I want to touch on. First, one thing I just want to add as well, these beings, when they show up and they're beautiful, they also give you these love bombing feelings, like the emanations of love to raise your emotions. So that's another part that you're like, oh my God, I've never felt so much love in my life. And that also reinforces the message. Another thing. Oh, yes, go ahead.
But here's something I recently realized also. Here's another thing I never said before.
Okay.
They don't have the love. They have the, like, we feel like they love us so much, right? We listen to this. We feel that they love us so much. But the truth is they are using some sort of mechanism to elicit that love from within us. It's our love that they pull out. We are the ones experiencing the love internally. They just have some sort of mechanism to make us feel that love. That doesn't mean that they're loving at all.
It's kind of like almost like a drug, as it like you think about MDMA or something. Okay.
Ecstasy, right? It's like a form, because they have the ability to influence us energetically, telepathically. So it's like instant ecstasy. If you take ecstasy, you feel love for the whole world. You feel so much love for that person you can't stand, in reality. It's the same exact thing. The being shows up and pushes that button within us, and we think that they are loving to us. But the truth is, what we're experiencing is that love that's within us. And they're out there with the little cup for Loosh. Let me have a little shot of that.
Now, you also mentioned spirit guides, and this is part of what makes your book and all the content that you've created so important, because for people like me, we talk about the NDEs, we talk about the manipulation. You're like, yes, life has a purpose. We're here to learn lessons. Hook, line, and sinker. It roped me in at the beginning until I broke free of it. Yeah, it's very frustrating. And now we can talk about as well how bizarre this whole idea of life lessons is. But we'll get back to that. But the thing I wanted to go back to, and what's amazing about your book is you weave in the idea of, hey, the stuff that's communicated in these regression sessions via Journey of Souls it's not wrong. It's that these souls are ascending in a way, and they become guides and they become spirit guides or teachers, but that's all within the framework of the matrix. These are effectively souls that are getting manipulated, and in a way so that like, oh, now I don't have to incarnate anymore. Now but they basically become sucked into the system. Can you talk a little bit more about that whole idea?
Goodness, they become the agents of the same system.
Yeah.
And it's in plain sight. It's in plain sight. I cannot believe that. I never noticed that, and I never realized that. And I read Yogananda's book, Yogananda's autobiography of a yogi. I read that a number of times. And until I read and then I read chapter 43, the resurrection of Sri Yukteswar, which is his guru. And it was all mystical and magical and incredible. Until this year, I read it again, and I was like, whoa. So he's telling us that he was the enlightened being, and not only him, but all of these enlightened gurus that graduate from having to have physical incarnations on earth, and they are thrilled to go next door to the next neighboring planet, and there they continue paying off now astral karma. They continue working with the souls who they send back to earth for punishment, for more karma, or they work with them within the same system. But these gurus, so these gurus become the trainers, let's just say, right? The trainers in the astral realm. And they also are guided. They're guided by what they consider higher beings, more advanced beings. And there's a hierarchy of that. And in that chapter 43, Sri Yukteswar tells us all about that when he describes where he went and how, and the hierarchy of beings. And so you go from earth physical incarnations into astral, and then the next astral, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next. And so it is a system set up like a video game where you graduate one level, which accidentally takes a couple million years, and then the next level and the next level, and there is no end to this. And you never become the super advanced beings that are running the show, that are giving you the directive, giving you the guidance, because these are the ones who are running the system. So that I call the slow path.
Yes.
Slow path out of earth physical incarnations, where you go to the next astral world, and after that the next astral world. But you are becoming, but when you take that path, you are the agent of the system, because you continue supporting reincarnation, you continue supporting the concept of karma, you continue teaching your subjects that that's the norm. And so I go in depth into this. This is a big discovery for me. There was a huge discovery for me personally, that the enlightenment path that is so talked about here as the way out is actually just the way to the next level of the game.
And still trapped within, which is really, really wild. And that's another really cool thing that you talk about, the fact that we're preached to about this enlightenment, but that's actually another offshoot, another path to a path that leads to the wrong place. And another thing is, you mentioned this quote in this interview in the book as well: "As above, so below." Doesn't that sound familiar? This idea of, hey, we get to rise up in the ranks, and some of us are able to kind of rise up just like we are in society, but you can never actually reach the tippy tops, like the secret societies who are really running. Like, you can get kind of in your mind, you think you're running the show, you think maybe you're the president or you're this and that, but you're not really running anything, right? Doesn't that, it's kind of like the same system here.
Exactly. Great point there. Great point, because the ones running the system are not visible. And they're
Yes.
not visible there either. And here's the thing. The practices, spiritual practices that can take you out of the system have been available to humanity from the beginning of time. But we were also conditioned to stop at the astral level. This is why so much conditioning is required. This is why every story that tells us about the astral heavens and the next level and all the beings and you being in service to humanity with karmic lessons and all of that. This is why we have so much of this in all of the books, in all of the scriptures, in all of the regressions, and all of the mystical experiences coming from all of the spirit guides and interactions with non-physicals, because without that conditioning, we wouldn't stop. We would continue and know that we can use the same enlightenment practices to jump out of the whole system. But we are taught to stay in the system. We're not taught to jump out of the system. That's the peculiarity of what's happening here on Earth. This is why we have so much conditioning going on
Now
from all directions.
Now you also, we touched briefly on this idea. You kind of made an angry face when I brought that up. The idea that is propagated in the New Ager whole paradigm that, hey, we're here to learn lessons. And I talked about this briefly in the video that I just made breaking down your book, saying that it seems quite a perverse idea with the memory wipe. How are we supposed to learn and retain? On top of that, there just seems to be the way that the system, the food chain, and all these negative things that we have to do on a daily basis to survive, it seems more set up so that there can always pluck something out that we messed up or we did wrong to keep us trapped in the system. Can you also just talk about, from your perspective, why is it such a frustrating idea when it's positioned that, oh no, we're here to learn life lessons, this is for our own benefit, to grow and grow? Like, can you give me your thoughts on that idea?
Yeah, just don't use my angry face on a thumbnail. That just boils my blood, I tell you. When I hear this, and reasonable people, reasonable, logical people go around saying Earth is a school and we are here to learn lessons.
I was one of those people. I just have to admit right off the bat, I was one of those people until I was awakened by your book and many other things. I just want to throw that out there. But yes.
Same here. Why? Because we're conditioned. We're conditioned that way. We weren't born that way. That's a set of beliefs that's being passed on to us from the beginning of time, so that we go willingly. But, all right, let's take the scenario. The person passed away, and they're now in the afterlife, and they're now facing the life review. And the beings in the life review, or the projection of the beings in the life review, is telling them that they did this, and that, and they made this, and these people suffer or whatever, and now they need to go back and redo this or work it out. And then the next scenario, the next scene is they say, okay, and so for you to redo this and do better, we're going to select your personality, your body, and the people you're going to interact with, and what you're going to do. And all of that is agreed upon. And then all of that is wiped, and the person comes in and does exactly what was agreed upon in the pre-birth dimension after the life review, and then comes back to the afterlife and is judged for doing exactly what was agreed upon.
That's right. Yeah.
And not only that, but what breaks my heart, absolutely breaks my heart, and I talk about that case in my book, where these beautiful souls remember that they agreed to horrendous, horrendous life circumstances, all for the highest good of their soul evolution. And they feed an army of archons through these horrendous circumstances that they agreed upon willingly, because they believe that that's for their highest good. But the soul within itself does not require evolution. And what we're judged for is just the human condition, being human. And the lessons that are set up are so horrendous, so that you are a well-oiled Loosh machine, and it does nothing for the evolution of the soul. So it just boils my blood and breaks my heart that these beautiful light beings that got lured into this reality by the constantly ongoing recruitment campaign into Earth plane agree in the afterlife or in the pre-birth to this god-awful circumstances and have no idea that they're just being bluntly milked for the light that their soul contains. And that's the only reason for their suffering. There's absolutely no learning or evolution for that soul through these god-awful so-called lessons that they're being put through on Earth plane.
So there's a couple of things that I want to mention here real quick. So number one, you mentioned, hey, we don't have to learn anything. That's not why we're here. This is actually corroborated by another pre-birth review that I did, where the gentleman that was giving his pre-birth memory, which I believe was outside of the matrix, because he said, hey, out there, everybody was good. There was no negativity. There was no evil. So we're actually coming from a place, I agree, of purity, where there is no evolution that is needed. That's one point I wanted to make. And the other point that you mentioned is a lot of these spirit guides or the blue entities, it's not that they're necessarily even coming in, and maybe some of them are and they're intentionally lying. But I think you make the other point, a really interesting point, which makes it difficult for discernment, is that they are lied to about what they should be doing. And so when they tell it to us, they believe in what they're doing. So how can, you know what I mean? And that's, again, as above, so below. We see the same thing with politicians or other people on this planet. They think they're telling us the exact way that it is, because that's what they've been conditioned. So you have these people, if you can manipulate and then let that manipulation trickle down, it makes it so much harder to weed out, right? And to discern who's being honest. And because as far as they know, they're being honest. Is that right?
For sure. So they are the product of the system. And so they are the product of what the system taught them to be and do. And so they continue being and doing exactly that. They're just doing their job and fully believing, because the system is very clever, and also very intricate. And I think it's way, way above my pay grade and way, way above most of our, most of our heads, way above, for us to fully grasp the whole texture, structure, and content. What's the word? I'm getting tired.
It's all good. But basically, you're saying just all the intricacies of the system and all the different ways that it tries to keep us contained effectively.
Yeah.
Now people might be listening to this and be very worried. This is all doom and gloom, but there is a silver lining here, because I think one of the most important sections of your book that we're now getting to is there is a way there is a way, from what you've researched and from what you've understood, there is a way to escape, not through enlightenment. And you don't even need enlightenment. That's not part of the process. So let's talk about that. And what I'm talking about is Kundalini energy. First of all, what is Kundalini energy?
Okay, before we go there, I want to address doom and gloom.
Okay.
First of all, and the second thing I already forgot. Okay, so the doom and gloom, it's the same as, let's say, imagine a fish in the fish bowl, sitting right on the shore of the ocean. And you come to that fish and you say, you can jump out and go back and be free. And the fish is like, that's doom and gloom.
Right.
That's fear-based.
Yeah, I've said the same.
Oh my God, that's fear-based. That's what I get. I get all the time. Like, your teachings are fear-based.
I get it too, by the way.
All right. You literally are showing the people the way back into freedom of the soul, out of the most unfair soul farming system in existence. And they tell you that's all fear-based. All right. So they have that is so misunderstood. I want to address that here.
I agree. Right? And can I add on to that really quickly? Sure. I've said what I said before on the same exact topic. They're like, you guys are too fear-based. You're trying to promote, and we're not fear-based. We can't even grasp onto this because we're so positive. It's like, no, that is it. We're not trying to fear monger, because it's not like we're trying to get people to buy into a religion via fear. What we're doing, it's just as if you're in the middle of a conflict. If you're in the middle of a war zone, you don't step out with bullets whizzing by you and say, it's too negative to acknowledge the bullets. I'm just going to imagine they're butterflies and walk through. No, it's like, let's acknowledge reality. Let's get down on our hands and knees. Let's go under the fire. And so we're giving you the knowledge of that. We're just trying to understand reality. If this is reality, unfortunately, we should accept it so that we can prepare and adjust and shift and get out of harm's way. Is that a fair statement?
And so my book, Transcending the Trap, the front page right here says, escape is impossible without awareness of the trap. If you don't know where you're at and what you're against, you'll just be the battery for the lizards for the rest of your life, for the rest of hundreds and hundreds of lives. And there's no guarantee that after this life there's going to be an opportunity to remember this information, or to find someone who can lead you or give you an option to get out. So I feel that what we offer here is actually really empowering to those who want to take charge of their experience instead of being shepherded. But those who want to continue to be shepherded, that's their choice. And those who enjoy Earth and want to continue being on Earth, that's their choice as well. And that's a fair choice. I just think that we have a right to have a different choice as well. That should not be the only choice. And so the way out that I suggest is to awaken the Kundalini energy. And oh my God, Kundalini energy, oh my God, right? But if you use it correctly, it could be utilized as a rocket fuel that can propel your entire non-physical form, not just the astral body, your entire non-physical form out of all structures of the matrix, not through the matrix, not through the astral dimensions, but like a quantum leap, a quantum jump, straight into the fabric of divinity, which I call the true void. And you go past all form, past all expression, right back into the primordial state of the soul that your soul recognizes unmistakably as its one and only true home. And all of the NDE experiences, all of the fake void experiences fade in comparison to one to what that is like. And I can pile a huge pile of words here, and it will not give this experience justice. It cannot be described in words. It can only be known through experience. And to know it through experience, I have pulled together the practice that can give people that experience. The purpose of the practice is to create the skill for the soul to do the quantum jump at the moment of passing. We practice now. We use Kundalini energy and the breath work to subdue the body's resistance, to let the body, to make the body let go of the soul, and then direct the soul where we want it to go. And we go there again and again. So at the moment of passing, at the end of the long, fulfilling life, when as the body lets go, you will not need breath work, you would not need meditation, you would not need any technique. You will just send yourself as a soul directly where you have learned to go, and you learn it while you're still alive. This is the method that I suggest will give us a choice. I believe that it will work. Do I know this 100%? I don't. But I know that I have experienced that enough times to know that it is a possibility, and it is also, it does not require any predisposition, no pre-existing condition, nothing. You do not need to be enlightened. By the way, you mentioned enlightenment is not required. Enlightenment kind of happens as a side effect of this practice. It's a different, if it's just the side effect, the samadhi states, the opening of the third eye, all of that happens as a side effect of the practice. We don't focus on enlightenment. That's a side effect in this particular case. So enlightenment is a part of the process, but it's a side effect that we don't stop at enlightenment. We don't stop at one experience of the void. We don't, because that's most likely going to be the fake void, the main frame. We continue until we find ourselves in the true void. And I go into the true void versus the fake void. These are easily confused. Not really easily if you had experience of both, but for the first timers, for someone who is a novice, it's going to be confusing. So I go into that in my book, and I also am releasing the audio class on the voidacademy.net this month about the true void versus the fake void. I just taught that class live, and the replay will be available. I also have other classes on the voidacademy.net that cover the whole Kundalini awakening, the challenges, the side effects, and the benefits. And I really hold people's hands there as to prepare them for what to expect with this practice, what it gives you. And the books are very good supporting materials. So the combination of the books, like Beyond the Trap, that has not been mentioned, that's my second book. That is kind of the second half of that book is kind of like a training manual, and all you need is the practice itself that you get in the course. And I just released the most updated course. That's course level 1. It gives you the technique, and it gives you the details and the interferences and the side effects. And so it's a very, very coherent delivery, if I may say so. So that's the update to the course level 1. That's also on the Void Academy. And all you need is to learn the technique, get the concept, and then practice. And same as building any skill, this takes time and patience and perseverance, and you give your soul a chance to get out of the Loosh farm that unfortunately our reality is.
Now, all of this stuff, hopefully you're going to send it to me and I can put all these links in the description. So make sure if you guys are interested in any of this stuff, check the description. It's going to all be in there, and that would be awesome. Just a couple of things too. I want to reiterate that you mentioned one of the things was, hey, live a fruitful life, live a happy life. You mentioned that in the book as well. So I think that's an important takeaway. It doesn't mean you have to be upset about reality or all this. Live a happy life. I think that's an important message. And the other thing that I want to just highlight as well is you mentioned this in your book, you mentioned it here, and I just want to touch on it again. It doesn't really matter the way in which you pass. So you don't have to focus on that. The idea is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea is you train yourself to have these experiences to make the distinction between the fake void and the real void. And then when your time comes, however it comes, your soul will be ready, your soul will be prepared, and you'll make it to where you need to go. Is that an accurate way of phrasing it?
Absolutely, because there's also a lot of confusion about, well, how does people say, oh, how am I going to go anywhere if I was unconscious before I passed? So if I pass in an accident, or all of these scenarios, they have to be at 45 degrees. There are like this ideas now out too.
Yeah.
None of this matters, because we're talking about the body. The body will let go of you, but through the practice you will learn how to quantum leap into, like, right out of the system. So you will not be pulled into the tunnel of light. You will know to not go into the tunnel of light. You will bypass that altogether. And you will know not to make a pit stop at the fake void either. So you will literally train and train. And the reason we need this intense breath work, the reason we need to do this practice in the middle of the night, oh my God, people are rolling their eyes. How can I do this? I've been doing this for 15 years, a little under 15 years now, and the only thing it's done is it improved every aspect of my reality. So, and it also rejuvenates you way better than sleep. But all of these are just details. But the thing is, the only reason we need the practice and the Kundalini energy and the breath work and this meditation is because we are working against the body that is holding on, and against the system that, even if you vibrate slowly out of your body, the way you astral project, you're within the matrix. We're not learning to astral project. We're learning to quantum leap out of the entire system. And for that, we need intense technique that takes time and perseverance to work. And once it worked, you can repeat it and repeat it. And then when the body lets go of you, you will not need any of this. You will just repeat the route that you have already paved, and take that route again, and your soul is out of the trap. That's the main point of all my teachings.
Now, a couple of things I just want to highlight here. You mentioned, so this is something that's in Isabella's book, which I can't recommend any more than I have. Like, you should just really check this out. But the difference between astral travel and quantum travel. So this is what you're talking about right here. Quantum travel, the way to zip out. As you've given so much of your time, I want to say thank you so much. This has been absolutely incredible. Everything that I was hoping and more. Last thing, I have heard people say, and you even said, ooh, Kundalini energy. And I think you might have been alluding to this. Some people say, well, wait a minute, that's, I believe, like considered serpent energy. And they worry about that and as maybe having a negative connotation. What's your response to maybe some people having a fear of utilizing Kundalini energy because of its connection to serpent energy?
All of that is a part of the anti-awakening propaganda.
Okay.
And yes, they did in the old books and in the scriptures liken the serpent and the Kundalini energy to the snake, snake coiled at the bottom of your body at the root center, and then it stands up like a cobra and opens its hood right here. It is very literal. This is exactly what happens with Kundalini energy, but because they worshipped the reptilians back in the day and they worshipped the snakes back in the day, so they likened it to the serpent, to something they thought was magical and special. But the Kundalini energy is a part of your own body. It is something that it's like there are some people on the internet saying you need to remove your Kundalini energy. It's the same as like, okay, let's remove my leg.
Mm. Okay.
It's that makes it that much sense as well. But yeah, this is not for those who are mentally unstable.
Okay.
No advanced spiritual practices or psychedelics or anything that gives you the experience of the invisible are fit for those who are mentally or emotionally unstable. So if you're mentally and emotionally stable, you're going to be fine, but it is good to familiarize yourself with the side effects of the practice. And for that, I have classes on the Void Academy so that you know what to expect. None of this is in any way detrimental or life threatening or any of that at all. But I mean, when you do anything, you do, I don't know, you run a marathon, you're out of breath, you have a heartbeat, you're
Sure.
burning all over the body. It's very similar to that, right? You do any activity that requires physiological change, like running a marathon, you're going to experience side effects. Do you go to the hospital for that? No, you don't. You know that if you run a marathon, you're going to be out of breath, you're going to have a heart palpitations, you're going to be burning all over, you're going to be having whatever else side effects are with that. If you take ayahuasca, you're gonna be throwing up like there's no tomorrow. You're gonna feel altered and god awful, and then you're gonna start having visions, and people do it right with these side
Yes.
effects.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. This is an advanced spiritual practice that I teach, and it comes with side effects, but they are way less than ayahuasca, and they are way more comfortable because you do this than running a marathon. You do this in the comfort of your own bedroom and or your own meditation room, and it's um, to be expected, because sitting on the couch twirling your thumbs and not moving would give you no side effects whatsoever, but
Right.
it will also not create any change in the body or in your reality. So if we want change, there are side effects.
Okay.
No matter, I mean, even you went to the Monroe Institute
Mhm.
where it is so soft and benevolent and just all beautiful music and so slow, right?
Mhm.
And still you had that intense emotional outburst,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So so things that means things are happening. That means you had an emotional breakthrough.
Mhm.
Yeah, if when things are happening, something occurs, and all of the fear based, now that's fear based, all of the fear based stories about Kundalini awakening are
Uh-huh.
just to keep us from accessing our abilities, because Kundalini awakening gives you access to your abilities, healing our traumas, because Kundalini awakening helps with that, improving our physical health, Kundalini awakening helps with that, and potentially quantum leaping out of the entire matrix structure. So, you just figure out, do you want to feel a little uncomfortable or do you want all of these benefits?
I really, and this is just the perfect thing that I wanted to end on. I really appreciate you clearing that up, because I didn't know too much either about this, but I'd heard this fear of it, and you just explained that perfectly. I think that's the perfect note to end upon. So again, as we wrap it all together, you see all of the details that are discussed and talked about in this book, in this interview, but there is a super positive message at the end. There's a practice to incorporate. And I want to start learning now that I've had a chance to talk to you. I can't wait. And just as we close out, what are all the things that you wanted to share where people can, I know you've mentioned it, but I'll let you end on this note and just tell us where we can go to find all this information, or even potentially connect with you if people want to do that.
So all of the classes and the courses are on thevoidacademy.net. And access to the Facebook group, and all the links, everything is on that website. So just all you need is thevoidacademy.net, and that's it.
Okay.
And the positive message here is, if we do nothing, nothing is going to change. We will keep running in circles around the planet, being the battery for the system that's invisible to us. But if we make an effort, we give ourselves a chance to liberate our souls and to experience the true essence of our divinity while still alive. That's a side effect of the practice. And then give ourselves the ultimate freedom after this lifetime. I mean, what could possibly be more positive than this potential? So this is how I want to end this for you.
Love that. Nothing else needs to be said. Beautiful way to end. And once again, let me say thank you for coming on. This is a dream come true, and it was incredible. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining. Isabella Greene, need I say more? And we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.